Hey guys, so today we're going to be looking at photosynthesis and cellular respiration. So make sure you go back to the QOD today, copy and paste all the things you need to know for your notes. And again, if I talk too much, just ignore me and you can click to yourself, and that's totally fine. All right, so we have photosynthesis and cellular respiration. Photosynthesis is kind of what starts it all. So plants, protists, some bacteria do, and then cellular respiration is what us animals do. We take the stuff made in photosynthesis and use it to fuel our bodies. Sorry guys, no chance. So first off, we're going to start with what is energy. So energy is actually, it's not quite a verb, but it's more just something that has energy can do work. So something with energy can do something, whether that is to open its petals, it is to speak, something that can move, something that can change colors. You can do something that is work. Lifting, running, opening, closing, that's work. So if you can do those things, you have energy. So all living things either get their energy from food or the sun. So like animals, that means us, that means grasshoppers, that means jaguars, that means the goldfish. We have to eat things, we have to consume. Plants, on the other hand, these are autotrophs. They do photosynthesis. And if you remember, auto means self, like an automatic car changes gears by itself. You don't have to shift anything, it does it for you. I'm trying to think of something else, like autopilot is going to kind of drive a plane for the pilot. It's going to do it by itself. You still need the pilot there, but the plane's going to drive itself. Now, troph means to feed. So all this means is self-feeding. You feed yourself. I don't need to go hunting. A plant doesn't need to go hunting. It doesn't need to go to the grocery store. It just feeds itself by absorbing sunlight. So sunlight's that key factor there. Sometimes it's chemicals, but usually it's sunlight. Now, us, heterotrophs, we are other feeding. This means they must get their food from somewhere else, in that case, eating. Now, it's not necessarily eating. Sometimes you have these little single-celled organisms. They don't really have like a stomach. They don't have a mouth, but they might like, an amoeba has this little thing called like a foot, and it just kind of like goes around the thing it wants to eat and then just closes it in. And like absorbs it and breaks it down. It doesn't have like a little mouth or anything like that. But they're still autotrophs because they're eating something. Chance bed. Sorry, guys. So the chemicals of energy. Energy comes in many forms. You can have light energy. The fact that when you turn the light on, you can see something. That light bulb's doing work. So that is considered having energy. Heat. When you are sitting at a campfire and you feel the heat coming off, that's what, I don't know if we've talked about this before, but when it comes to everything on earth is cycling. The same stuff we have now is what we've always had, just changes its form. So that would, remember, a physical change would be if I broke a stick in half. It's still the same amount, it's just broken in two pieces. It's still stick, it's just smaller sticks. Where if we burn it, it's not a stick anymore. It now has become ash, and everything else has turned into heat energy. So there's still the same amount of stuff, it just looks different. So that would be the heat energy. Electric energy, chemical energy, and chemical energy is very complicated. There's a lot of different forms of it. And what we're going to talk about today is how chemical energy is used to break down food and turn it into other things. Because remember, energy's ability to do work. So when we're talking about chemical energy, what it's doing is turning one thing into something else. So that's the work piece there. It's the work it's doing. All right, so cell fuel. This is going to get a little heavy in words, but we can do this. So ADP, if you see, here's the adenosine. But this is adenosine, and then the D is di, meaning two, so 1, 2 phosphates. Adenosine diphosphate, ADP, is the energy molecule stored in your cells. It's made of adenine, which is it's kind of like a protein. Chance, come, babe. Oh my goodness, sorry guys. That's in your DNA. It's in all your cell walls. It's a big part of anything in your body that can do anything. Needs adenine and adenosine. Excuse me. Okay, so adenine. You're going to have two pieces. It looks like two pieces, but this is one molecule of adenine. You have a ribose sugar is the R, and then two phosphate groups. This happens after a cell has done work. An ATP molecule that has spent one of its phosphates. So this is when your body doesn't have enough fuel. Like you have used all your extra stuff. This might be when, you know how sometimes when you're doing an exercise, at first it's easy, and then you start breathing heavier, then your muscles start hurting. That's because you're getting in this zone right here, this ADP zone. All the energy from your food is gone now. Now you're going on your reserves. This is all the stuff that's stored in your body. They have like anaerobics and aerobic exercise. If you are going to wake up tomorrow and feel sore, that means you got to this level. You got to the diphosphate. You have used all your extra stuff, all the food that you've eaten that day. You've burned it all. You've spent it all. Now you're getting to the point where you're going to go into those reserves and use that reserve fuel in your body. And that builds up lactic acid. And when you're sore the next day, it's because that lactic acid's in your body, and that's what's hurting. Now, adenosine triphosphate, this is a fully charged energy molecule for cells. It can be used for cell activity, gains the third phosphate group from food, most cells' favorite source. So of this is glucose, is where you're going to break this piece of phosphate off right here. So if you notice, we're going to go back real quick. This looks exactly the same. This is a more simple drawing, but you have your adenine right here, your ribose sugar, a little pentagon there, and then you have your two phosphates. Your body can still run on this. It's just kind of low. You're not going to be able to do a sprint if you don't have on ADP, but your body can still create new blood cells. You can sleep. You can do all these things. Now, if you notice, here's that adenine, same shape. Here's a little pentagon ribose sugar. And then you have, in this case, we had two before. Now we have one more phosphate group. This is our fully charged energy molecule for the cells. So at this point, this is, the night before a big game, people like carbo load, the like big pasta dinner, all that energy that used to be in the food. Remember, things, we have the same amount of stuff, it just changes form. So what was once that food is now turned, chemicals in our body, chemical energy, the work the chemicals are doing, is taking that food in, breaking it apart, so we can use it and turn it into right here, this phosphate group. And that's what's going to fully charge right here. Is a lot of energy. And the difference here, when our body breaks, like when we're running and we need energy, this is our little piece of fuel. When it breaks off and becomes that releases a lot of energy into our bodies. But then when we're down to here, we don't have it anymore. That's why exercise hurts eventually. All right, now photosynthesis. Life's energy begins with plants in the sun. Plants absorb two main things: carbon dioxide from the air through their leaves. Now, when we do things like drive down the street in a gas car, when you burn gasoline, that what was once that liquid is lost into heat energy because there's a little spark, there's a little light, and then it gives off CO2. And when we breathe out CO2. And those are things that are absorbed in through the leaves of plants. They have little stromas, it's like little mouths on their leaves. And they'll absorb that and they'll turn it into energy in their body. So we need each other. The stuff that we breathe out, they absorb in. And the stuff that they give off, we breathe in. So it's like this big cycle of needing each other. So their leaves, from the air, they're absorbing CO2. And then from the ground, they also need water. That's what the whole point of roots are. Every plant has some sort of root system to take water out of the ground and bring it into their bodies. You guys could see how Chance is looking at me right now. Look at this. Look at this dog. Wants to go outside. He's mad at me. Anyway. So here's how this process is working. The sun gives off heat and light energy, obviously. You go outside, you can feel that on a real cold day. The sun finally breaks through the clouds. You can feel that heat. That's energy. And light, that's how we see. Light energy is absorbed by the chloroplasts. If you remember from the amoeba sisters yesterday. There's these little tiny parts inside your cells that you guys have probably learned, like the mighty mitochondria, all that stuff. Plants don't really, they still have mitochondria, don't get me wrong, but a lot of their energy comes from their chloroplasts, those little green pigment-filled organelles that have the thylakoids in them. And those thylakoids are holding chlorophyll, which is a green pigment that when it absorbs sunlight turns into energy. This energy will be used to rearrange molecules and create a glucose, which is a carb. Carbohydrates are broken into like two main categories, starches and sugars. This is for like more biology, but there are three macro, which means big molecules, that all living things are made of and they consume, so that they have to eat them to put new ones in their body. Lipids are fats. They're a little bit more simple in their form. You have carbohydrates, which is the starches and sugars. And then we have proteins, which are made of amino acids. So glucose is the natural plant sugar. So just like how a strawberry tastes sweet, you don't need to put sugar on it. That's like it's a natural sugar that you want. Photosynthesis happens inside the chloroplast. Again, those little green things inside a plant cell. Inside the chloroplast are membranes called thylakoids. And the way I kind of remember this, when I was learning this, they literally look like coins, like little green stacks of coins. So I think like thylakoid in my head. It's like when if I was looking at a picture of a plant cell, trying to figure out which one was the thylakoid, I think, all right, thylakoid, looks like little stacks of coins. Oh, there they are. So if that helps, you can try that. So a stack of thylakoids, or coins, is called a granum. These contain chlorophyll, which captures light energy to make ATP, a green pigment that gives plants their color. The space between that grana is the stroma. If you guys remember, there's the light dependent and light independent. Now, depending on where that reaction's happening, you're talking if it's in the granum themselves or the stroma, is which interaction you're having. So again, these little stacks here look like coins. It's a thylakoid, coin. And then a big stack of them, like this whole thing, is the granum. And the stroma is this liquid that's filling all the space in between. But that's what a chloroplast looks like. And here you have your basic chemical reaction. We're talking about our equation. That's what I was looking for. And what you'll notice about chemical equations is they're balanced. So there's the same amount of everything on each side. Now, this is where a little bit of math is coming in. We have coefficients versus kind of exponents. So right here, if we're looking at CO2, imagine the 6 is not here. We're going to kind of like block it. CO2, there's no number next to the C, so that means there's 1. But the fact that there's a 2 next to the oxygen, or the O, means there's 2 O's. So there's 1 C and 2 O's. But now we're putting a little math. If we put that coefficient in the front, imagine there are parentheses. Let me see if I can make a little, oh, here we go. Imagine there are parentheses right here. Oh, those are horrible looking parentheses. Okay. So now this 6 is going to be applied to the C. And the 6 is also going to be applied to the O2. So this means that in reality, there are 6 C's. Ooh. And then when it comes to the oxygen, you're doing 6 times 2. So now the oxygen is not going to travel by itself. It's 2 little oxygen molecules attached to each other. So 6 times 2 is 12. So in reality, there's 12 oxygen on this side. Ooh. Let's see how much I can make this look like a 2. Okay, so you got 12 oxygens right here, but again, remember over here, let me put my little parenthesis on. This time the oxygen is traveling by itself in water, so we're going to add, the 6 is going to be multiplied to this O. We're just going to look at the oxygens for this to, excuse me, explain how this works. So there are 6 over here in this part. Oxygen 6. So we got 18 in total. Now on this side, that's a really ugly 6. So here's our 6, and if you notice, on this side, when it's giving off oxygen, here's our O6, so these two bounce off out each other. after the reaction has happened. So the sunlight hits these two molecules, carbon dioxide, the stuff we breathe out, they're absorbing it through their leaves, then the water's coming up through their roots, sunlight hits. Now we're going to really mix that stuff around through chemical energy inside the plant's body. So we know the O6 right here and right here got the same amount. Now, again, parentheses, ooh, let me move myself there. 2 times 6, I got 12 oxygen on this side. So everything is balanced out. You have the same amount of stuff. When it comes to nature, there's no new stuff, no new friends. We have the old stuff. We just kind of change how it looks, rearrange it. And then again, when this gets eaten, when these sugars get eaten by animals and when this oxygen gets breathed in, we're going to break it apart again and put it back together. That's just how all that works. It's all the same stuff always. Now let me erase everything in here. Boom. Boom. Can I do the circle thing? No, darn it. It's not a smart board. Erase, 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 erase. Okay, guys. Now, next slide. Photosynthesis factors. So here's are the things that determine how successful your photosynthesis is. The amount of water in the environment. So this is directly proportional. The more water, the more photosynthesis. You look at a rainforest, you can't see, there's so many plants you can't even see through them. A desert does not have much water, so you're not going to see, big, luscious fields in a desert. There's not enough water. Chances of me to throw his toy. You're going to have very spiny, small, very spread out plants in a desert. There's not a lot of water, so there's not a lot of plants. There's not a lot of successful photosynthesis. And a lot of their plants are kind of brown. They don't stay green very long. They don't have flowers very long because photosynthesis is not successful for them. Temperature. Photosynthesis enzymes work between 0 Celsius and 35 degrees Celsius. So for us, that's between like freezing and 95 degrees. So pretty normal. So like spring, not really fall, kind of fall, like fall to spring weather is where it's really happy. If it's cold enough, photosynthesis won't happen at all. So think again, when you're up at like the Arctic Circle, there's not huge forests and trees and all these flowers. It's too cold. And same in a desert. You get to the middle of the Sahara Desert, it's so hot. There's points where there's literally no plants anywhere from miles because it's just too hot. You're way above that 95. It's too hot, not enough water. You can't have successful photosynthesis. And the intensity of light, less photosynthesis. There is a maximum rate. So thinking about one of the most densely populated by plants areas on the planet is the Amazon rainforest. Sorry, guys. Chance, come here, baby. Hey, relax. It was just the door. Dogs, man. So in the Amazon rainforest, at the very top, you can see, if you're like flying over top, you see all these trees, but those trees are so big and dense, they actually block the sunlight. That's called the canopy. The top part you can see. It's where a lot of the life is. If you go on the forest floor, it's very dark because all the trees are covering the light from coming in, the sunlight. They're blocking it. So at the very bottom, there's not a lot of great photosynthesis. It's very hard to be a new plant in the rainforest, like a new baby little bud. Most of them die because there's just no sunlight because there's so many big dense trees that you can't see through on the forest floor, where the upper canopy is real lush and bright because the sun can hit it. At the bottom, the sun can't break through, so there's not very good successful photosynthesis. So even though it's the same location, different parts in that location are very different in their success of photosynthesis. Now, cell respiration.